Okay, Phil Rosemary here with BetterPitching.com. We're going to take a look here at Dan's pitching motion, and we're going to put him alongside an old clip of Tim Lincecum back in his college days. And the reason I did that was because they're very similar in their style of pitching, tempo of their motion. A lot of similarities there, but if we look at them next to each other, you'll see some definite differences in how Tim is using his legs to generate power and explosiveness in his pitching motion. Alright, so let's just first watch Dan here go through his motion. Alright, so overall, does a nice job getting his legs involved and really shifting that momentum from his back foot to his front foot. But what I want to look at is those key areas in the motion. We'll stop him right there, is that knees passing his belt buckle. Now we just watch Lincecum's motion here, and you see how much more momentum he is using and generating to really accelerate down the mound and explode into a pitch release here. Okay, so we're going to stop Lincecum here right as his knee crosses that belt buckle, and I just want to look at where he is in his delivery as far as the progress he's making in moving down the mound and generating momentum. So he's looking at that line right there from his back foot to his front hip. You can see how Lincecum's really starting to gain momentum towards home plate and begin his acceleration down the mound, and that momentum will really help him to do that, where Tim still, or Dan here, is still fairly upright and over that back leg. He's a little bit inside that back foot, but not nearly as much as Lincecum is here. Now we just advance to the next phase here right as the hips start to open up, the knee crosses past the front hip. The main thing we're going to be looking at here is that back leg and seeing whether he's really driving and applying all his force down into the mound and pushing away from the mound towards home plate. How far is he moving down the mound here, and what position is that back leg? And if you look at Dan here, that angle of his ankle to that back knee is almost straight up and down. So really what he's doing right there, he's applying pressure down, applying force, pushing down into the mound rather than out. So if you look at Lincecum's back leg, he's really starting to push down against the inside part of that pitching rubber and pushing out and away from it, so that he is really starting to think about going in that direction and applying force down that way to accelerate down the mound, or what Dan's doing here is kind of sinking and then driving out, that old drop and drive. And he still does it better than a lot of pitchers I've worked with, but making that little adjustment I think can make a big difference here. Right, so let's clear that up. Move out to release point. We see some hip-shoulder separation here, but definitely something that, not nearly what Lincecum's getting here. If you look right before his front foot hits the ground, just as that back part of his front foot starting to hit, you can see his hips. I mean, that's really ridiculous there, how closed off his shoulders are, but his hips are starting to open up. You've seen that back leg right there. Now, Dan's getting it a little bit. It's a little bit tough to see in this video, but with the angle of his back foot, it appears here that it's still his toe is kind of pointing towards third base, rather than having turned already with his heel pointing back to second base, so that his right hip has already kind of popped and is driving towards home plate. But again, it's not bad. It's much better than a lot of pitchers I've worked with here. So we'll clear this up and advance that to release. You can see he's exploding well over that front foot, bracing up pretty well there. But again, Lincecum gets a little better job there, bracing up on that front leg. where Dan's got a little bit more of an angle there, a little more flexion in that front knee, a little more give, which is, we want to see a little less give in order to transfer that energy, that force, and shift it up the kinetic chain into the arm at release. So overall, definitely some good things here you see with Dan and his motion. Very fluid, does use momentum to his advantage, but just a couple tweaks here or there to really get the maximum efficiency in his pitching motion the way Lincecum does, to use all of his momentum and drive in his legs to accelerate down the mound and get every last little bit of potential in that small frame to be one of the elite hard throwers in the game.